Hello, hello. What's up? What's up? It is a new day, it is a new week, and it's time to get social. My name is KaVonna, and welcome to the Introvert's Social Hour. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Introvert Social Hour. Today, we are talking about Supacell. Think of it as like a fun view, a fun review. It's going to be real chill. It's basically like me kind of having to chat with you. So, if you're looking for something that's like super in depth, this may not be the one for you. This is just very like fun vibes, just to talk about what I really loved about the show. If you have not watched Supacell on Netflix, first of all, go do that because this is fully spoiled. You There's not a spoil free review. And also, why haven't you watched it yet? It's been out long enough. But then also, I hope you enjoy it. And then if you have watched Supercell, I'm so excited to talk with you about it today. Please let me know after today's episode what your thoughts were. I've given commentary about it on my TikTok page as well at the Introvert Social Hour. So just make sure you let me know what's up because I'm ready for season two. But let's get into it. Um, you should know. But just in case you don't know, you haven't watched it for some reason, you're just like, let me listen to the review first. Basically, Supercell is following a few different characters. We have Michael, Taser, Sabrina, Andre, Rodney as the main like five, but then also some other characters. It follows two, and they make a huge impact in the story as well. But they are the ones that are developing their powers in this first season. So we are seeing them realize that they have superpowers, what ends up being called supercell, and it comes from people who have sickle cell in their bloodline. I can't think of like the right word right now, but like their DNA, their generation. There's a word specifically for it, and there's a chance that people with sickle cell in their bloodline could end up having supercell. So a lot of these characters, um, it was revealed, their parents had it or their parents have it, depending on, what parents are alive or not. And then we're gonna go from there. So, one, I was automatically captured in because it was Black people with superpowers. 100%. That's what I'm looking for. I feel like when we get it, it isn't always the coolest. I feel like it's not always the most genuine either. Like you can really tell when a black person is involved in black characters. There's a huge, 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 huge difference because the way that I was able to see everybody's story play out felt very genuine compared to like other things that I've seen. We've seen some flops recently. Some people, having, black people having superpowers for the sake of white people. Forgot what that movie was about and never watched it. It sounded really cool at first, and then the trailer dropped, and it was like, what did you do? You had a chance here. But I just want to say that now that we're having black people with superpowers, I would love to see black people specifically with like um magical abilities like fantasy and such. You know what I would really love? Um if you know me, you know I love the Vampire Diaries. If they wanted to do like a Bonnie spinoff or something, they wouldn't because they're Bonnie haters. But I just thought that that would be great. I love me some Cat Graham. Um, but yeah, that's what immediately pulled me in, and I'm so glad that they did not disappoint. So let's go for it. First of all, just character breakdown. I love Deanna Michael. Deanna Michael forever. And we're gonna talk about what happened. But I really, really, really loved the way that their love story was displayed. Like they just really loved each other and cared for one another. And Dion was willing to call him out when he was on some mess because he was on some. He didn't handle the things properly, which I understand, but once again, he should have handled them properly. Um, but yeah, I just loved their story. And it was just so cute to see, even their first scene. Um, and then we got Taser. I saw somebody say we should call him the knife or something. So accurate because what is up with him and slicing everybody up? We have Sabrina. She's the older sister of the bunch. And then we also have her sister Charlene. And I'm gonna say right now, I couldn't stand Charlene. Nope. And even then, there were points in times where I could kind of understand where she's coming from. And then most of the time it was just like, no. At the end of the day, Charlene loves her sister. And at the end of the day, Sabrina loves her sister. But one thing about Charlene is that she has this very selfish like attitude about herself most of the time. And there were things that Sabrina was going through that Charlene couldn't care really less about. And it wasn't really purposeful, intentional lack of care. It was just like she was so involved in herself and the things that she wanted, which was, Craig, aka Crazy. And she didn't know what she deserved. And that kind of runs the plot for Charlene. And how it gets her in some trouble. We have Andre struggling with money. He lost his job in episode one, and then we also see him also trying to be his son's protector, trying to connect with his son and be there for his son, and that kind of comes in and out as well. We have Rodney. Rodney is a whole goof. Rodney is a whole goof. And I love that we have a character like him because, yes, you got to show us at least one person who is so careless with their powers. And Rodney is the one. But we learn a lot about Rodney and throughout the season and how we get more in depth into his character and the things that he's going through because I feel like a lot of it is goof, 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 goof. And then it's like, oh, snap. Like, no, he actually like went through some stuff. So I love that, and I love his connection with his friend Spud. Like they're really like brothers to each other. And then yeah, I'm just gonna like pinpoint those ones. There's a lot of other characters. I'm not gonna know their names, and just bear with me on that. But I know the names of most people. So let's go into episode one. I say episode one or episode two, et cetera, et cetera. They're really titled by their names, except for the last episode. So I'm just going to say episode one, aka Michael. So we see one. I think the opener is like wild. I think if you want to capture somebody's attention, do it that way, but it was also like completely like heart-wrenching. So we get the opening scene. Mind you, it was 2 minutes in. 2 minutes in, and we get a woman. She's got a nice little like gray streak in her fro, and she's running. She's got like a hospital gown on. She's running in a facility, and the alarms are going off. Obviously, she's running from a group of people. They're chasing after her with guns, and she finally like she blows off the door with her power. Couldn't really 100% be sure exactly what her power was, whether it was like telekinesis like Sabrina, or if it was kind of like a wind or something. I'm not 100% sure, but it was giving telekinesis. That was the vibe there. But yeah, they shot her straight up. She like what no malintent. She finally got out. You saw her look at the light outside and just felt so free to like finally see the sun. And literally, as we see her like get this like weight off her shoulders, they shoot her in the back. She falls and she dies. Not only that, in those first 2 minutes, we also see them dragging her body in front of blood streak following. My dad, blood streak following as they're dragging her body in front of all the other um locked up people. Um I'm gonna call not they can't even be called hostages because it's not like you give me something in return, but of in front of all the other people at Supacell. And so that was a wild first start. That let us know where we were headed. These people don't care at all. Because once again, she had no malintent. She didn't hurt anybody or anything. Um, so then we go into seeing Dion. Once again, I talked about it. Dion and Michael's first scene together. They're so cute. And then we meet Andre. He's trying to have time with his son. That sets up his connection with money and his connection with his son through the rest of the season. Taser is in a gang in South London. And, we're seeing him get intertwined in gang life. We see Charlene and Sabrina introduced. We see Andre get fired when we just saw him get struggling with money. We see Rodney struggling to sell his drugs. And then we also see what really kicks off everything. So after kind of meeting all the characters and seeing where they're at in their lives, we go back to Michael, and Michael ends up delivering. He's a delivery driver, so he ends up delivering to a section of London that unfortunately he shouldn't have been in. I was interested to see I don't know if I missed I've watched it many times, but I don't know if it just kind of kept going over me, but why all of a sudden he was delivering in that spot compared to others. I'm pretty sure it's probably because I feel like that's something that would have been answered. I don't know if I just kept missing it along the way. If you know the answer to that, let me know, because the fact that he had never had a delivery there, that he didn't know any better, was interesting to me. But yeah, they're ganging out there, so they're wild and they're like, "What you doing in our spot? You know, you can't be delivering here." They see he's a delivery driver. They saw him roll up with the truck. They're like, "No, you can't deliver here. You gotta pay up or something." Um, Things get a little out of control, and Taser, as he is, stabby stabby, stabs Michael. Michael's powers activate. He ends up reversing time unknowingly, and he's driving again in his car. From there on out, we get Michael driving to the same place, having the exact same interaction the first time. What he does differently, keeps that box in his hand. He doesn't push back. Taser's like, "Nah, let him go." And then he's like, "Whoo!" But now Michael's like, "What the heck is going on?" From there, we also get um, we see how Taser's mom and is in the family photos. I wanted to note that as well. Um, and I say that because the woman in the first 2 minutes was Taser's mom. So that reveal was also really sad, especially seeing how they were. Um, we're gonna talk about it, but I just wanted to note that um, how, oof, man, it was just a lot. Um, but let's talk about other people's reveals, because I think I just jumped ahead a little bit. So that's how Michael's powers get revealed. And then Rodney tries to sell to someone. His car ends up breaking down. He's like, "Oh, I got to get to them quick." He's running, trying to catch the bus. He ends up running himself to Scotland. And he's like, "Where am I at?" And this little old lady's like, "You're like, duh, you're in Scotland." She was kind of rude, but I get it. They were in the middle of nowhere. She was had the right to kind of, be away, I guess, just be on her toes. So then his powers get activated. And then Andre, he's fired. He needs money at the ATM. He hasn't gotten paid for whatever he did work those hours at his job. Plot twist is he hits the ATM. ATM it breaks, and also the wall above the ATM cracks. ATM starts splitting money. Bop, 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 bop. He's shook. We get to see as audience the camera's clocking him. Okay. And then from there on out, then we get to zoom, zoom, zoom. This is where I skipped. Taser and his grandma are talking about his mom. And what is so interesting about that is he's like, "Mom was never there for me, didn't raise me," basically being like, "Nah, like you're the person who took care of me." And we see that care that Taser has in him, because she shows it to his grandma, and versus like what we saw, when he stabby Michael and him being in the streets. And from there, we do see Taser's mom in the photos, and that unfortunately she is dead. We do not see his power reveal, like him discovering his powers for the first time on camera, which I thought that was a very interesting choice. But I'm pretty sure it happened after that moment, because that moment he was very angry with what his grandma was saying. He was like, "Let me just remove myself from the conversation," because obviously his feelings towards his mom, him thinking that his mom left him with malintent, of course, uh, made him feel a certain way, validly so. And I think that reveal happened literally right after that, and their decision to not show us that was very interesting. And I'm not mad at it, because we're talking about us seeing him use his powers in episode 2. Next, we see Sabrina. Sabrina's boyfriend is caught cheating on her. And then Sabrina accidentally yeets him with her telekinesis powers. Once again, when I say yeet, I'm going to say yeet a lot for Sabrina. I'm saying she yeets him without touching him. So he's freaked out, of course. And then now at this point, everybody has their powers. Of course, once again, we don't see Tasers on screen, but Taser has his powers as well at this point too. Um, from there on out, Michael was going to propose to Dion anyways. Michael does still propose, but he's kind of like out of it. He's like, "I don't know what the heck happened earlier." He still, as he proposes, they celebrate. They're getting jiggy at the apartment, and all of a sudden, she sees his eyes glow, and he disappears in front of her eyes. Now, what we see as an audience is he's done teleported. He's teleported, and ends up in a very quiet London. There's nobody around. I'm very intrigued on like what the development is to get there exactly. We can imagine and take some guesses there. And then we see the team: Sabrina, Andre, Rodney, Taser, and then plot twist, Michael sees himself. Now, let me tell you this. Future Michael's done been through it, and we know why. But oh my goodness. And also too, we know he was in the future, but like how far? So like, you know, but man, he's been through a lot. Yeah, he has. And so from there, future Michael talks to current Michael, present day Michael. And before he takes him away to location I'm about to say, he freezes time. And I want to just note that frozen time section was so freaking cool. Obviously, we haven't seen current time Michael use his frozen time power yet because he just got his powers. But to see that happen, to see Sabrina midair, to see Andre holding the car, to see Rodney in mid flash mode was really, really awesome. And I just love. That's why I really do love shows like this because we get to see the what really goes into post production and what really goes into the minds of even like current production of like, here's how I want this to look, here's how we're going to set it up, and then here's what you need to do in order to make it look like blank. And I just really, 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 really love that. So that's where we kind of cut from there. That was a lot already in season one, not season one, episode one, right? um so it ends up getting revealed that, and I'm kind of blending into episode two right now. Basically, Michael's like, "Hey, you need to save Dion. She's going to die. This is her grave. And also, you need to get all those people you just saw, those four other people. You need to connect them. That's the only way this is going to work." And so this ignites a large journey for Michael because he is struggling throughout the season to get them together. By the way, but yes, then episode two is called Taser. So we get to see Dion did see him disappear. She freaks out. I thought it was very interesting that Michael didn't think she would see her. Once again, I have to consider that Michael thought he was tripping. So then I processed that a little bit. It was confirmed that Andre did take some of that money. I don't think he took all of it because that was a lot of funds. I think he took as much as he could grab. Um, and I get it. At first, I was like, "Why didn't you take it all?" And I was like, "Well, he got a few pockets, you know. He did what he could." And then Michael tries to confide in his friend and tell him like, "Hey, listen," but the friend doesn't believe him. Of course, this tends to be a trajectory throughout this whole entire episode of people trying to confide in other people about their powers, and depending on friend or family member, they're kind of like, I don't know about that. But episode one was very much like reveal, and then episode two with Taser was very much like trying to show other people powers. So then we see that after getting tricked by the opposite gang, I don't know the gang names, I'm so sorry, but the blue gang, we see that Taser and his team is trying to like run away, but also fight. And then plot twist is we get revealed as an audience, Taser's power is invisibility. So like I said, he be stabbing and slicing. So he stabbing and slicing the other gang as he does, and then he sliced the main guy of that gang. He's gone. He's done. He was slicing up everybody. And then we get to Sabrina. She's freaking out, of course. Sister really isn't hearing it. Like I said, I'm not a fan of Charlene. Um, but I guess she does the best she can, because it was very much like a we get a lot throughout the season of, oh, well, let's just party, you need it. It's like, no, Charlene, like you're girl, no. And then Andre's dumb self goes on a shopping spree. Can we talk about that for a second? That's not something that people talk about that much. So he goes on a shopping spree with his son after getting all that money. I get it, but I don't. And I'm gonna say I get it a lot because I really try to see like other people's perspectives on things, but at the same time I don't. Like, because it's also revealed later on that he's got debt. So first of all, you have debt. We already first of all, also too, I'm jumping going back. He gave his son a phone in episode one, knowing he was broke. An iPhone, fresh. What I do get is I understand like parents trying to give the best to their kids. And I think what I see is a father who has been detached, trying to, connect via items and materials. And so Andre just has a lot to learn, and I think we're going to see that growth. We kind of see that start in the finale of just kind of trying to make the right calls and the best decisions. He has a lot to do, especially with the fact that AJ, his son, has already started getting involved into the gang. We see that a lot of him trying to fight and try to do that push and pull for his son not to be in a gang. And that just doesn't work out. And we'll talk about why. But yeah, he goes on a shopping spree and I'm like, dude, you just got all this money. One, maybe you want to like hold on to it, pay off the things that you've been struggling with, hold on to some money for some rent and stuff. I get, maybe take your kid out for like one or two items, but he had like Armani and stuff. And I was like, oh my, like you were really balling out there. Um, and then we also see Michael start to try that process of getting in contact with people. So he tries to get in contact with Taser, which is, you know, Michael does the best he can, but he's not about that life. So he didn't know any better for a lot of those things, and it was really interesting to see because I was just like, oh, Michael, like, there were so many times you almost died because you didn't know any better, and this was one of them because he had to freeze time unknowingly, of course. This is the first time present day Michael, freezes time because he almost got shot by a bullet. Um, and then we also see Rodney trying to recreate his powers in Scotland and also in London. Hilarious, by the way. Once again, he's the goofball of them all, in my opinion. And so we see the goofy side of the powers at play. And him just running and restarting and running and trying to do it, absolutely hilarious. Um, and then at the end, we see Taser and team plot to start to steal drugs and sell them now that the blue gang is gone. And it's revealed that he stole from Crazy, and Crazy was talked about a bit, aka Craig. Um, Craig was mentioned via Charlene, and Craig was also mentioned as Crazy via, um, Taser and his team because Crazy is supposed to be locked away for 35 years, and now he's out of jail somehow, and we don't know why. We move into episode 3, continuation. What I do love about Supacell is like these continuation episodes. We end in like a like a high end situation, and we continue on versus like a solid ending and then moving forward. I don't know. Like some shows give like really clean endings, and I kind of don't like that's a clean ending. It makes sense for this. If it was like a once a week show, it would hurt my soul to have to wait. But because it's not, I love it because I just go and watch the next one. But yeah, we connect back to see Taser and Crazy kind of face to face again for the first time in a minute. Ends up being that Taser's like, hey, yo, like my guy didn't do it. Like, let's do one on one. Taser ends up beating up one of Crazy. I call them henchmen. But one of Crazy's guys. And then Crazy doesn't play fair. His name is Crazy. Should have known better. He ends up shooting one of Taser's boys, the one that Taser didn't tell that they were setting up to steal, if that makes sense. You know what I'm talking about because you watched it, or you should have watched it at this point. Um, but yeah, that was wild. And it just let us know that he doesn't play fair at all. And I don't think in that kind of like, it's not meant to be played fair, but like he really takes it to another level, if that makes sense. Um, and then we obviously know ahead of time, like Crazy taught Taser the ways of, um, like gang life and stuff like that. And Taser, as we see, because he was just trying to get into like selling and stuff, is still figuring out his play. He's got power, but not a whole bunch, if that makes sense. He's kind of building as we see in front of our faces. We see Dion. She's a social worker. She ends up talking to Taser's grandma unknowingly of all this stuff, right? Because she's looking for his mom that has died in episode 1, first 2 minutes. So what's said though is hey, she was saying she could do things that she shouldn't be able to do. Dion's like, when what? And that kind of like ignites her research journey throughout the whole entire season of, oh, there's people out here. Like Dion's our little researcher, and I love that. Michael doesn't. But yeah. Um, and then we see that the system not only kills people, they also like use their blood afterwards and cut them open and use them as science projects. So that's what they were doing to the mom after we see Dion and Grandma talk. And then Sabrina, I love Sabrina. She goes to get an MRI, and then I realized she's got hospital connections because it's not that easy, at least in the US. So I was like shook how fast she was able to get one. I don't know. I don't live in England, but if it's that easy to get MRI, is it that easy? I don't think so because they emphasized her connection with the doctor. So I'm assuming it's not that easy. But let me know, because if it is, I love that for y'all, because brain knowledge is important. But she got an MRI for her powers, and I thought that was funny. Um, and then we see that she's going through it. Her powers are like off the roof in a way for her because she doesn't know what the heck is happening. She's still freaked out from almost killing her boyfriend, basically. And then she almost gets hit by a car, and we see Andre saves her. And one thing I didn't talk about um for the first two episodes is how much they their lives intertwine, and we see as an audience, which is so cool. And even though they don't know it or don't really register each other, I think it's so awesome to see. We see Rodney trying to sell to Andre. We see Michael delivering packages everywhere, or Rodney also trying to sell to Michael while he's like delivering. We see once again, like I said, Sabrina getting saved by Andre. Taser, we saw the Taser and Michael situation, how that went down. But it's just so interesting how we see little moments like that where they're so close but so far. Um, yeah, shout out to Ratman about that. And then we move on to see Andre still trying to keep his son away from drugs. As we know, that doesn't work out that well. Michael reveals his power to Taser. He finally is able to see Taser face to face again after episode one. Taser doesn't know that he stabbed Michael because obviously he went back in time. But Taser doesn't really care. He's not about that. He does want to know. So once again, we see Michael's struggle of trying to get these people together, trying to get them on the same page. Then we once again see Rodney goofing off with his powers because we see him reveal him to Spud. He ends up knocking himself out, but we also see that Rodney is able to super heal himself, though. So that's an additional power for him, which makes sense. Totally makes sense. I didn't think about that. Um, so it's revealed that once again, Crazy and Charlene have history. He ends up coming up to her to the house. Um, we learned that he's also abusive. We already kind of knew he was manipulative, but he's manipulative. Oh my gosh, hello, manipulative in his romantic relationships as well. And what we know is that Charlene, she be struggling, and we see that she struggles in this as well. She was all about, no, you were with some other girls, da 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 da. He gave her a watch, and she tried to keep it play and was like, well, I still don't forgive you, girl. You just told him where you're gonna be at so he could show up and hang out with you. So I don't know. I was with Sabrina like, girl, you are hard headed, okay? And Sabrina, I love her. She doesn't care. She went up to Crazy and was like, hey, listen, I didn't forget what you did to my sister, even though she did. Touch her again and square up. And he didn't care. He was hecka annoying. Um, and then we move into seeing Taser kind of have a softer side. He apologized. I was shook about that. He apologizes to his friend for being the reason he was in the hospital. And then the crazy vengeance story kind of begins. Um, we see at the end he's basically like, hey, listen, you know, I'm gonna plan to kill him. And then on top of that, we still see Dion researching. Rodney is zooming around selling his drugs. Cameras are catching it. Andre's testing his powers, and he reveals his powers to his friend by lifting his car up while he's in it. There was a better way to go about that, Andre. I thought that was so funny. I was just like, why would you do that? They were like, why didn't you lift a car in front of him or something? Why would you lift his car? But he had to be a little extra. That's fine. And then we see Charlene was hanging. She was gonna go out. She was gonna go out to Onyx, was the club, and we see that she's trying to crazy isn't coming, so she's trying to hang out with some other guys, and that doesn't fall out so well, because plot twist is the man she is with, he tries to take advantage of her in an alley. Sabrina comes saves the day, whacking him with her heel, red bottom, okay? And then when she does that, he reveals his powers and he flies up. Of course, Charlene, this is the first. She didn't believe what Sabrina was saying, so she's freaking out. Sabrina doesn't care. He flies towards Sabrina. She yeets him into a wall and kills him, ends up killing him. And then we see that he was actually being tracked by the system. I'm calling these the system, the facility. We haven't confirmed if it's government connected or not. But all this facility that is holding the Supercell peeps, I'm calling it the system. And how, because they know that he has now died, according to the cameras, the last person that was with him was Charlene, Sabrina's sister. So they think Charlene is the Supercell person. Something that I didn't know in the beginning. Michael's mom has not Supercell. Michael's mom has sickle cell, and she was in the process of being put into a sickle cell facility. The first two episodes, Michael's like, "I got it. I'm gonna do it. We good, right?" There was a blonde lady who was in charge of it all. I'm gonna tell you right now. I already knew. Yeah, KaVonna, you didn't know nothing. Yes, I did. I might have missed some other things. We're gonna talk about the other things I missed, but I knew for a fact that she was involved in what was happening with the Supercell peeps because it made too much sense. Of course, you're going to be in charge of a sickle cell facility, have that track record so then you can track their bloodline and their kids to understand who might have Supercell. It 100% made sense. I knew she was a part of it. Um, and we're gonna talk about that as well. So then we go into episode 4. This is Andre, titled Andre. Charlene apologizes for not believing Sabrina. I was surprised about that. That's why I wanted to talk about that because I was like, oh snap, like she apologized. Okay. And then I didn't talk about Rodney and Michael setting to meet up from episode 3, but the hooded things, I also call them the minions after the reveal. They pop up to attack, and Ronnie's been trying to sell for a minute, so he's tapped out of power, zooming around the city. So what in episode 4, Rodney's not really vibing with what Michael is saying. He's like, they just tried to kill me. You're the one who wanted to meet. So at the end of the day, Michael's like really struggling. Rodney could care less about what's happening, quite frankly. He just wants to sell and make money. And then we find out, like I said earlier, Andre has outstanding debt. I thought which was a really important moment was that Andre's son offered to give his iPhone to help his dad. And I was like, oh man, like, this isn't going to help the situation of him trying to keep his son out of, the gang life. And then Andre did grab his last little stash and paid off his debt to avoid the phone and having his son involved in that. But now he's out of funds. And then Sabrina wanted to turn herself in, but dude, from the guy from the alley from the previous episode, but he ended up poof disappearing, which of course we knew they weren't gonna just let him be dead on the street. They were gonna take him now that he's dead, study him up, as they did with the previous woman, aka Taser's mom. And then we also see that Dion has a new family trying to connect with their daughter named Jasmine. And that's an interesting storyline. We see how Jasmine, I'm going to just start jumping throughout episodes. We see how Jasmine, they're saying that Jasmine contacts them. Jasmine says she just wants to, she'll come back when she's normal. They're saying that Jasmine ran away on her own, when in reality, the parents also know that they took her to a facility. The system took her to the facility, and they are literally working on her. But what I'm curious about that is I want to know more about these phone calls because we see Jasmine trying to, I'm not necessarily escape, but we see her trying to, she's not with it, if that makes sense. She's not with the program. So I get very intrigued by the whole, oh, they called and they just want to be normal. Because the plot twist is if it's not really Jasmine calling, then why would they mention the whole normal thing? Because then they'd be letting people know about the whole power situation anyways, if they didn't know before. Um, you know, I don't know. But I right now, my current thought is I don't think Jasmine's calling. And I don't think the mom was calling either. And I feel like that's a for me, that feels like a very obvious decision being made on my end of that's definitely not them because Taser's mom was also trying to escape. So I don't see why she would call and be like, "Oh, I'll wait until I'm normal. I'll wait till I'm normal." So I want to know how are they making those calls? When I actually feel like, you know what, I asked that question and I gave myself the answer. It's actually very easy to copy voices these days. We see that with like the fake music and stuff, which is wild, might I add. But that's probably how they're doing it. So I've answered my own question. There we go. I'm gonna keep jumping around. So we see Uh, oh yeah, Rodney's friend got him to contact Michael. So even though Rodney was not down, Spud was like, "Nah, dude. Like Spud's real. Like Spud, I love Spud. He's a real one." And so he gets Michael and Rodney to like, chat it up. Rodney's still like, "Nah," but eventually he gets to the program, and then we also see. Let's talk about the scene of Michael and Andre back to back in two different booths at the restaurant. I thought that was wild. Michael's like, "Oh, I can't find. It's so hard." Da 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 da. And then Andre's literally right behind him. So a lot of those connections of being at the same place and not realizing that, which I actually think is so wild because when you think about it, think about how much that happens in like real time. Obviously, you're not hunting for people to come and do superpowers with you, but it's just so important to think about like how many people do I know who are actually around me at certain times and I don't really know it? I don't know. I was just really like thinking about that of just like the overlap of life in concepts of time and such. Superpower shows always make me think about that, especially with Michael's superpower. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because that scene was really cool. I really appreciated that from the team. So just from there, we kind of end with Michael's frustration on things. And then I wanted to talk about the big scene of it all. So how they all end up connected and in the same place at the same time and how that rolls into this for this specific episode. So one, we already know Taser's like, "Hey, listen." He tells Crazy, "Next time I see you, I'm killing you." That ignites a huge part of the plot for the rest of the season. Andre couldn't meet his son because him and his friend are plotting something. So AJ ends up where he shouldn't be with the gangs and they're going to Crazy Spot. Andre and his friend go to Crazy Spot as well, and they're plotting to steal a oh my gosh, I can't think of the word right now. A safe. There we go. And then we know Michael's on the hunt for Sabrina while trying to deliver. He got the advice from friend, just deliver. You're in the area anyways. Like just see who you find. Da 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 da. In the middle of that, I just want to talk about how he gets a call with Dion. The previous episode I didn't mention, but he got a little bit, you know, ahead of himself because he doesn't like the fact that Dion's researching and really trying to figure out what's going on. And so he ended up yelling at her. And I was like, "Oh, my girl's not going to take that. I know she isn't. I know she's not." And so, correct. She was like, "Hey, you didn't even apologize to me. You didn't note that you were being disrespectful. Like, you're not gonna say nothing." And he just kind of was like, That's kind of where he was at. Once again, I he's freaking out, and I understand there's a lot going through him, but in the midst of him trying to like save her, he ended up like starting to lose her in a lot of ways. I think I would love to see how the concept of time gets played into season 2 of the things you know from the future, you trying to change the situation or the ways you move, how that impacts the future. Like the future is no longer the future. It's a different, you know, um version of the future that you knew of. But yeah, I love that moment. Dion was like, "Nah, you're not." And she was feeling a certain way. She was hurt for sure because that's not how their relationship is. But I love that she called him out on it. It wasn't just, chill vibes. But we see also too that Crazy doesn't like that his sales are low. So then he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" Ends up being that Rodney and Spud's business is interrupting Crazy's business. So then they call and they're like, hey, we want some. And then they're trying to get Rodney to come over. Plot twist is Spud is the one who answered. So Spud heads over. Mm. So right now we see there's a lot of them heading to Crazy's place. So they're all going to be in one space at the same time. Because on top of that, we also see how Charlene is chasing after Crazy, as we know. And she wants to get some, some grass. And so she's going to be heading to his place to try to get some, but also really to try to see him. But Michael ends up finding Sabrina at the exact same time this is all happening. So then um, I want to note that I found it so interesting that she was mad that the package was on the floor. Once again, I live in the US. I don't live in London. Is that not like a normalized thing to have your package on the floor? If you live in London, can you let me know? Not London, just general, like England, UK area. Even maybe Europe. Yeah, I'm just curious. Is that not a normalized thing to put the package on the ground if you don't answer? Just curious because I was just like, why is she mad about that? Sometimes our Amazon drivers don't even ring the doorbell. They just put the package on the floor. So let me know. The US is a little rough, so it could be the case scenario. Um but yeah, so we see that Michael's like, "Hey, listen, you're Sabrina. We both have powers." They revealed their eyes to each other. Um, and here's what's trying to happen. I'm trying to break things down. Sabrina's like, "I do have questions, but I'm also trying to chase my sister down because now my sister's annoyed that I tried to turn myself in." It was a lot happening at once. He was like, "Hey, listen, can I get in the car with you? I can tell you everything." For me, I this is where I understand Charlene because she's like, no, random dude. Charlene hasn't been done right by guys. Even just in these episodes alone. Who knows what happened previously, outside of Crazy. So I understand her like hesitation. So I was really surprised that she was like, yeah, but I'm glad because Michael needed a little break. He needed somebody to just be willing to listen to what he had to say. Not that it was that easy with Sabrina, of course, but at least she like was like, "Yeah, come in the car." And then so once again, they're all kind of heading to Crazy's place. Um, and then we see that Andre's like, "Yeah, let's go." He's ready to steal the safe. But then plot twist is Michael gets a call from his mom. She's in pain at the facility, the sickle cell facility. So he actually heads out. So now it's four of them. So Rodney ends up realizing that Spud isn't back yet after, we realize that they use her powers. They actually need to sleep a lot to replenish them. So Rodney sleeps. He wakes up, it's dark, and Spud's not there. He's like, nah, this is weird. I'm heading over to Spud. So we have Andre, Rodney, Taser, Sabrina, and Charlene. They all end up in the same room after shots go out, fighting going, stab, 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 other things like that. They end up all up in the same room, and then that's where we end for Andre's episode. When we start episode 5, we move into episode 5 titled Rodney. I want to talk about the bullet scene really, really, really quick. I loved it. Once again, I love all this like high tech, really cool thought behind a move. And so um the bullet scene at the start of episode 5 where it goes shot, safe, um Sabrina does her telekinesis, and then Rodney kind of dips away from it with his superpowers, his speed. I thought that was really awesome to see. Once again, and it being in slow motion as well. So shout out once again to that. We see Andre bend a gun, which was also super interesting. And then when one of Taser's peeps sees it, he's like, "Who did this?" He's wilding out. Once again, seeing Black people react to superpowers is so funny to actually see it accurately displayed on screen. I love that because it's so accurate for us. And then once again, they just spent a whole night of like using a lot of their superpowers. So Andres ends up like knocking out, and when they're knocked out, they're knocked out. No phone, no bang on the door is gonna do nothing. So his son's trying to contact him outside of his store. I wanted to note that it was so sad. Like he just thought his dad didn't want to speak to him. For me, I would have seen it a different way. If I'm knocking on the door and I know I just called, the phone's in there, everything like that, I'm calling 911 because something's wrong. But for him, he thought his dad didn't want to speak to him. And I was like, oh man, that's unfortunate. And so that leads him to go in a further direction, of course, in the opposite direction that we want him to go. Um, Crazy didn't like how Taser was up at his place. So he ended up injuring Taser's grandma. Very rude, by the way. Keep the grandma out. He really doesn't care. And then we get Sabrina actually ends up getting a promotion after her rough day that we talked about earlier. And I love that she also like fought for herself because she thought she was gonna get fired. She's like, actually, I've done all this work, and they're like, no, girl, you chilling. Like, just chillax. Let us know when you're having a rough day. Um, and then we also see all this is going on, right? And then Charlene is with crazy at Sabrina and them's house. Okay? She done brought that man inside the house doing the do. What ends up happening is he's ready to leave. He chokes her because she's like, "What you just gonna do? Leave?" And then he literally takes the watch that she gave her off as he's choking her. And then, like, she calls her sister, Sabrina, lets her know what's going on. She's mad. She grabs a knife, walks outside, and we don't see her for a minute after that. We don't know what happens to her for a chunk of time. I thought Crazy did something to her. Technically, he did, but it wasn't just him, right? Um, and so from there on out, Dion's still doing her research as the social worker she is. But also Michael still hasn't told her about her death date. So that's a lot of push and pull between them right now of like he's not being very communicative, and then also like she's still trying to figure stuff out because she's gonna do what she's gonna do. And exactly. Don't say nothing to her. But then we also see Andre is on his way to go talk to Michael and Rodney. He ends up getting taken. And on top of that, Taser gets almost taken as well. But he be slashing, slicing and dicing. And it just so happens that Sabrina, Rodney, and Michael come and save him as well. So that is where we see another set of four. So it's not until the final episode where we see all five of them together. It's very much like here's a four, here's a three, here's a two. But they all interacted at some point in time. And that's how it kind of ends. I did want to note the system calls them assets. Homeboy was like, "Hey, you need to collect all the assets by tonight." And it was like, first of all, I have a name. Um, like I don't know. It was some like you see certain things and they give you like certain dystopian films or novels and they give the person a number. I was like, to be called an asset is a different level of disrespect. Um, I just didn't. I was just like, wow, that's deep. Like asset is oh ooh, especially like as a black person, like asset is crazy. Yeah, they call them assets. Um, so we continue in episode 6. They're fighting. I call them the minions, as you know, or the hooded things, as they called them as well. Rodney gets burnt up. He's okay. He's got super healing. They talk about how yesterday's operation was a fail. The system talks about it. The system boss with quotations because we ended up finding out he's not the boss. It's the blonde lady. And the operation was that Charlene was taken, and they don't know that yet as a like Sabrina in them, but we know that once we finish watching it, that they took Charlene instead because they thought that she was the one with the superpowers. So then we see that, um, they're also together. Sabrina calls out Taser, basically being like, "Who raised you? Like you're on one." And Taser kind of does come down a little bit and actually does tell Sabrina where Crazy says he is, which is apparently A Town. Um, I will say that there's a lot of layers to that literally, but because what's happening up top and what's happening at bottom are completely opposite, but in some way it's connected because A Town up top, I feel like the system is controlling from the bottom. I don't know. Talk to me about it. Let me know what you think. If that made sense, please let me know as well. But then we also see how Andre's there. The system brings Jasmine to heal. So now we know she's a healer. And then on top of that, they're offering him money. And then we also end up finding out that, they kind of they do, not kind of, they threaten AJ as well. So he kind of has no choice. And he's told that the others are the danger to the society. In reality, it's the system. Um, let's talk about how one of Crazy's henchmen try to get at Dion immediately. No, I'm glad like she was about it. And then also Michael came and poofed up. He finally tells Dion about her death date. Sad beans. The way she processes that, 100% understandable. And then yeah, I just let's get into this finale because also too I didn't realize episode 6, I didn't say it. It's called Supercell. It really defines what's really happening. I feel like this is like the pre season to what's really going to pop off, but it's a solid preseason. Like, man. But yeah, so we get Dion hopping in with them. Dion in this car. Oh my gosh. I wish she would have stayed. I get it. Michael was trying to make up for keeping her distant for so long, but this was the time to keep her the most distant. And I think that they were like, "Oh, my death day isn't today." Oh, no, no. No. So now they know time could change whenever. Time can change whenever. Okay. Um, and I just knew. I knew the minute she got into that car with them, it was over. Unfortunately, and she had a lot of ups and downs through the rest of the night. So we see Andre's son. He's in A Town working. Um, Sabrina pops crazy in the head. Um, and he she flies him also because he tries to come at her. And then they all his crew freaks out. Rodney speeds to help, and he's like zipping them off. And that's once again when I see like they zipped out of there, left him in the dust. Easiest way to clear people out I've ever seen. That's why I was like, it's just so funny to see. And then I just wish they would have just killed him in the beginning. All that would have been over, you know? But once again, we needed the rest of the season to pop off. So I get it. I understand, but they should have just done it. They would have found out where to find her sister one way or another at a different point in time. Um, so yeah, they also still don't exactly know where A Town is, by the way. Like they know where A Town is, but they don't know where the facility is. We know as the audience it's under A Town, but they don't know that yet. Um, but yeah, so Dion needed to stay invisible. She needed to be low key, and I think she did the worst about that, by the way. And then is revealed to have Supercell because the minions start popping up in the little vortex portal. Um, and he's on the system side. He's a little system puppet. And we find out that he can borrow powers from others. I was trying to get a little bit more intel on that, trying to really pay attention. I can't exactly figure out how long he could use it, but it's not for very long because it does spike out after a few minutes. I don't know if it's like a good 5 or if it's less than that, but I would say his power isn't that grand because he got to touch somebody to use the other people's powers, So he wasn't all about that life, anyways. Um, but yeah, so the hooded ones are also revealed to be I call them Supacellians. Supercell peeps, Supercellians. And it's thanks to Ronnie because he's like eating the mask off their face, eating the hoods off. But he also gets knocked back from Andre. Because plot twist, Andre is not a part of it, and he's part of the crew going to collect them. So Sabrina ends up eating somebody to death. Things are going down. It's a lot going down. She didn't mean to do it, but the person that she eats lands on, a stick and it goes through the body, basically impaling. I'm assuming they were twin. They looked alike, so I'm assuming they were twins. One of the twins gets mad, starts winding her, choking Sabrina to death with the wind flow. Um, Ends up being because they didn't know where Taser was. He had disappeared, invisible. Taser slices her, yeet, and then he almost kills Andre as well. By the way, because Andre's trying to walk away with Michael. Michael done knocked out. Dion got knocked out as well. By the way, once again couldn't stay in the car. And when she finally did, it didn't work out. It was just a mess. But yeah, Taser almost kills Andre, but Michael wakes up enough to freeze time. And then he gets Dion up. He's like, girl, go drive. And then he's like, Andre, listen, what they told you, it was wrong. Don't do that. What I wish is that he would have actually just pulled, like, not even Dion, drive away, zipped her away real quick, came back. She did actually drive off. For me though, it felt really late because like her point in time had started moving again, even though everybody else was frozen. She could have been out of there by the time everybody was back up. So I don't know. I just felt like she moved a little too slow for me. And then Michael and Andre once again they talk. They realize that uh once again that they should be on the same team. Not they, but more so Andre realizes that they need to be on the same team. And then once again, everybody unfreezes. Dion gets knocked out again because she's trying to save Taser. She get out the car because they done landed on the car. Dion once again, ma'am, we're trying to keep you alive here. And then Taser starts glitching, so we notice that his powers are falling through. Sabrina is also draining because she wakes up after being knocked out as well. And then she ends up killing like the last minion hooded figure. And then they forgot about Crazy. He done flew. They got him knocked out on the side, but he's waking up. Once again, they should have zapped her out. Dion should have been there. And then they believed that so Crazy was like, hey, listen, I know all the details. He was telling the truth about some stuff. Your sister's here, this is all that stuff. But then he was like, hey, I have something in my back pocket that could take you there. Wrong. He could have literally just been like, it's underground. It's literally beneath us. And then he gets Rodney to come and grab his phone in his back pocket. First of all, of course, it was Rodney. Love you, Rodney, but it made sense. It was you. To go and grab that, sir. And then Crazy yeeted them up. I keep saying yeet, but he stabbed them up. The way he did Taser was out of this world. First of all, you already are a part of the problem of why my mom is dead. You literally pushed my grandma and had to call 911, had to call 911 for her. And this is how you 1-2 stabs isn't enough. You speed stabbed me? Speed stabbing me is wild. 1 or 2, 3 wasn't enough. He stabbed him about 40 times. Speed style. That was so disrespectful on so many levels. Michael's genius self was able to reverse it, of course. But that was the last of the bit because we don't got a lot, but here's what happens. He's able to reverse it. He ends up stabbing Crazy. Once again, it's a lot of they weren't checking their P's and Q's a lot. Because Crazy gets up for, I don't even know how many times. He's gotten up a lot because they weren't checking. And he gets up, he's able to use his last little check of breath, his last little 10 breathes or so. He probably had more. And he shoots. Ronnie zips and moves Michael out the way. But the shot goes towards the car where who's in it? Dion's in. The one time she actually stays in the car, it doesn't help her. Homegirl got shot. She's bleeding out. She's bleeding out bad. Michael can't get to her through his teleportation, so he runs to her human style. Everybody else, let's talk about this. We see Michael's power go out. The only way I can be okay is if it is told by writers, because we didn't see it as an audience. Yes, Ronnie's power went out. That last boost he used to move Michael out the way, that was it. Homegirl Sabrina's a nurse. Girl, you weren't trying to hold the bullet down or nothing. Not the bullet, but like hold the blood flow down. Put some pressure on it. He was like, "Help me," and they weren't even trying. Like they were just stunned. Like you couldn't zip her out of there. And if your powers were out, like okay, then you're out, Rodney, because then you really can't do nothing. But Sabrina, you couldn't put a little nurse action to it, try to keep her alive for a little bit longer or something. I guess they were all just like, well, she's done. They just kind of was like, up. I was like, well, dang, the way they did her was wild. Here's what I do want to know. So Dion does end up dead. I refuse to believe that. hmm Also, Homeboy's acting, Michael, A plus plus, down bad, incredibly down bad. The fact that I can understand Michael future versus Michael current, also A plus plus. But the way he balled down for Dion, but once again, going back to it, I refuse to believe that Dion is dead. She's dead, but no. You know what I'm saying? They are too cute of a couple. They are too much of each other's soulmates. They deserve each other. I think she's gonna come back. The future's changed already, right? So the future Michael that we saw is different. I I think they're gonna find a way to go back in time because I don't understand why he couldn't. So I'm gonna fast forward to a few days after Dion's dead. He does mention like he knows why I can't go back. Like I know I can't go back. Nothing can be done. But I'm just really curious as exactly why. Is he afraid to like change the time? And then also on top of that, their Supercell group officially kicks off, and I think that's also really awesome. Unfortunately, Dion is dead, and that's kind of the result of that. Michael's like, I'm going to the future. We're gonna stop them. He's on a revenge kick, as he should be. We go into a little bit of a post. It's not a post credit necessarily, but like a post after showing like the Supercell logo. Charlene is at the system facility, confirmed. She's going through it. It is revealed that the facility is exactly under A Town. It's revealed that Crazy was saved by the system. He was on his last breath by the system boss, in quotations, right? Once again, blonde lady is the actual boss. She's like, nah, I've saved you enough. She's like, no, I got you out of jail, let you sell your drugs. I've given you enough. She's not happy. First of all, who are you? This whole the white savior thing is not for me. That's why I love every political commentary in this show is solid, first off. And I'm not going 100% into deep to it because we've been talking for a minute, but the fact that it's like everybody in the system, everybody in is white. They were able to get black people to turn on each other for money and like power. They already had power, but yes, like a form of power to be able to say, "Oh, I got you. I put you in a box." I think that's so crazy, but it's reflective of what we see now in society as well. But moving forward, basically she's not happy. And then she's like, "Nah, I've done enough for you." She leaves. Crazy's like, "Nah, give me one more chance." Boom, boom. He's done. Shots fired. You saved him just to kill him. You just wanted to talk your piece and then kill him. So that was wild. All of that for nothing. Dion could have been alive. And then she said, "We do things my way." And homeboy mini boss looks scared. And I think she's going to use Michael's mom to get ahead of the game. And I'm afraid for that. I'm afraid for that real bad because homeboy's about to be in the future. He's not about to be in the present. So he's not going to be knowing what's going on. So that's Supacell. Um, I didn't talk about everything, but I feel like I talked a lot. I've been on here longer than I thought I would be. And I would love to know your thoughts on what you think season 2 is going to look like. Netflix, you better don't you cancel too much. I still have never forgiven you for Julie and the Phantoms, and you know that. Netflix, you better, and that is as in better. Make sure you give us a season 2. Renew is the word I was looking for. So, once again, with that being said, I have no notes. The only note I would give is why couldn't we save Dion? Why did she have to die? And also, can we have her back? Thank you very much. But I'm also intrigued to see this downfall of Michael. Not that I want to see that, but I'm, as a person who is intrigued by acting and like, talent, I'm very intrigued to see what that looks like because we've already started to see that downfall occur in those last few minutes of this season. I would love to know your thoughts on Supercell, your thoughts on every character. I would love to know your thoughts on my thoughts. Please, please, please let me know. I love the show. It's one of my new favorite shows. And I am so excited for Netflix to renew it because it will. And I'll definitely, definitely see you again and talk to you again about it when season 2 comes out. But make sure you follow me on TikTok at the Introvert Social Hour. Make sure you follow this podcast, like, share it with a friend, a family member, a loved one. Make sure you also follow me at KaVonna on Instagram to stay updated on podcast updates. Have a great day. Get some sunshine, get some air. Have an amazing day. And I'll see you next week on the Introvert Social Hour. Bye.